I find myself in the direst moment of my life, trembling with every drop of blood in my body. The tears won't come, and I maintain a stiff expression as I gaze fearfully ahead. Before me lie the divorce papers, accompanied by my husband's mocking smile, as he proceeds to insult me and my parents. He claimed I deserved a woman with a higher education and more refinement, not someone who inherited her parents' genes and only graduated middle school. "You're worthless," he continued, "nothing more than a piece of trash. You're a high school graduate with no job, your father's just a middle school graduate working at an obscure company, and your mother is unemployed. I won't support this family with my hard-earned money." My husband's attitude had drastically changed after we married. He saw me merely as a means to vent his stress. I believed in him, dedicating myself to managing our household as it was the only thing I could offer him. However, a single word from me had led to the dissolution of our relationship. Confronted by a high school graduate like me, it must have been a humiliation he couldn't bear. Having it all unravel like this, I had only wanted to create a happy family. Despite my apologies, a husband I once loved had vanished. Anger, sadness, hopelessness, these emotions swirled within me, and I remained tearful, unable to make sense of it all. At that moment, I had no inkling of what awaited my hapless husband, a man who judged people solely based on their educational backgrounds. My name is Hunt, and my lifelong dream has been to become a mother. From an early age, I admired my own mother and aspired to marry, have children, and embody the ideal mother. Each morning, I would rouse my husband and our children from their slumber, prepare a hearty breakfast, and ensure they had enough to eat. I reveled in the happiness of watching them and sending them off with a smile. Throughout the day, I would clean the house, arrange snacks for the kids, and contemplate dinner preparations. When my husband returned home, we'd all bathe together and share a family meal. I would kiss the kids goodnight and tuck them in, ensuring their peace of mind as they drifted into slumber. This was the life I had envisioned. I shared this dream with every boyfriend I ever had, and each one ultimately found it too daunting and left me. I understood their perspective. They perceived me as overly idealistic and doubted their capacity to shoulder such responsibilities. Nonetheless, I never abandoned my dream, always maintaining unwavering honesty. Then one day, I happened upon Evan at a chance party invitation. "Hunt," he said, "I think your dream is incredible. When I marry, I want my wife to focus on managing the household. I'd be overjoyed to have a loving wife like you, Hunt, waiting for me at home with our children." I felt as though destiny had brought us together, a man who gazed at me with that smile. We soon began dating, and I found him to be enjoyable and dependable, despite certain signs of obsessiveness. On one occasion, when I served him a meal at my home with a bit too many carbs, he remarked, "I prefer more protein in my meals, you know. Keep that in mind next time, all right?" During a walk together, when a child accidentally bumped into him, Evan chastised the kid, saying, "Did you play in the sandbox? Damn, I got a little dirty. Don't worry, kid, I won't ask you to fetch your parents. But some adults can be really scary, you know. You better watch out, got it?" Though I found his tone a tad harsh, I believed he was a genuinely nice, caring, and dependable person. 02. I decided to marry him after knowing him for 6 months. My father appeared somewhat skeptical, while my mother approved, believing it would make me happy. My husband's parents welcomed me into their family as well, and so we became a couple. I left my job and dedicated my days to managing the household, living each day in alignment with my dream. I welcomed all his critiques of my cooking and housework as valuable insights into cultivating a happy marriage. However, in the recesses of my mind, I began to wonder whether love truly is blind or if perhaps we had rushed into marriage a bit too soon. "Hunt, I'm home," my husband would announce, visibly exhausted. "My parents, my business partner, they keep complaining to me. It's really getting on my nerves." As I shared my frustrations, a junior colleague of mine chimed in, suggesting that it might also be my fault. "What an unpleasant fellow." "I understand," I responded. "It must be quite challenging. Thank you for working so hard every day. Feel free to share anything with me. I'm a good listener, you know." "What? You don't know anything about having a job, do you?" he retorted. "It's not as if you've been in the business world for long." "Oh, my apologies," I conceded. "You've indeed had more experience, having started working right after high school." My husband had a penchant for poking fun at my high school education ever since we tied the knot. While my parents had prepared for me to attend college, I chose to work diligently and become an independent member of society to repay their support. My husband, on the other hand, had graduated from a prestigious university and always took great pride in his impressive corporate career. He had worked hard to secure his position within a prestigious company, which is one of the reasons I admired him. Our educational backgrounds were among the factors that drew me to him, and he had shown more respect for me when we were dating. I believed his workplace stress might be taking a toll on him. Well, since you're a stay-at-home wife, he declared, let me enlighten you about what it's like working in a large corporation. In essence, my husband detailed how his subordinates and younger client contacts had pointed out mistakes he had made, a situation exacerbated by the fact that they were all younger than him. They have some nerve to criticize me, he vented. Given that my husband had only spent 3 years with the company, he wasn't significantly older than his colleagues. This was the thought running through my mind as I listened. Hey, are you even listening to me? He snapped, unsharing my feelings despite being exhausted. Can we have a pleasant conversation? Yes, I'm listening, I replied. Aren't they almost the same age as you? I thought you could all help each other as a team, you know. What? You're offering your opinion now, he retorted. Why are you acting like I'm not good enough? You should be grateful I married you, even though you only graduated from high school. Don't you know how to respect your husband? Regret filled me as I realized my mistake. Each time I dared to voice my thoughts, he would verbally attack me. As you can imagine, I was growing weary of this pattern. My father's face suddenly flashed before my eyes. My husband, however, continued his tirade, uttering even more unforgivable words. Well, with a father who only graduated from middle school, it's no surprise you turned out foolish, he remarked. Someone with a middle school diploma can only work at some small local business. Your dad's a failure. Isn't he approaching retirement? I mean, do those small businesses even offer retirement benefits? I can't imagine living a commoner's life with meager savings like that. Well, don't worry. I work for a large company and I'll be receiving a substantial retirement bonus. Regardless, you can make fun of me all you want, but please refrain from mocking my father. I understand you're under a lot of stress, but taking it out on me is not fair. I've never gotten angry, no matter what you've said to me, but when you insulted my father, who worked so hard for our family, I lost my temper. I couldn't allow my husband to insult my father, who had sacrificed so much for our family. With my words spoken, I grabbed my cell phone and rushed out of the house. The thought of divorce briefly crossed my mind, but the crisp winter air helped clear my anger-filled mind. I needed to hear my father's voice, so I attempted to call him, though I was afraid I might worry him. Lost in thought, I found myself far from home. Upon returning, I planned to apologize to my husband. After all, we had only been married for a few months, and the argument from the previous day was just a minor hiccup in what I hoped would be a long and happy future. There were much worse things that could happen, and contemplating divorce over something like this seemed premature. When I arrived home, my husband was already asleep. Tomorrow was his day off, and I intended to prepare his favorite meals as an apology. With that in mind, I also went to sleep. The next morning, my husband woke up and left with a sulky expression on his face. He didn't mention yesterday's events, but the atmosphere was still tense. As I prepared lunch, thinking about how best to apologize, he returned home. Hi, honey, I'm sorry for being so rude to you yesterday. Today, I'll make all your favorite dishes, so feel free to request anything. Whatever. Sit down, we need to talk, he said abruptly, placing a piece of paper in front of me. What? Isn't this? I stammered. Yes, you recognize it. It's a divorce petition. After you left yesterday, I realized that we're not a good match. I felt a chill run down my spine, as if all the blood had drained from my body. Had my husband been so upset by our argument that he wanted a divorce? I couldn't find my voice, so I remained silent as he continued. I've been thinking about it. Since you left yesterday, I've come to the conclusion that a high school graduate wife with middle school graduate parents who work for a small business is not a suitable match for me. I married you because you were kind of cute and I thought you'd be at my beck and call, but I didn't realize how useless you truly are. I struggled to speak. Should I beg for his forgiveness, kneel before him? Should I have refrained from responding and pushed him away instead? My husband pressed on. Well, I'm sure there are more intelligent and sophisticated women out there who are better suited for me. Don't worry about me. I'll remarry soon. You'll have a tough time now that I'm no longer the breadwinner. You, a high school graduate without a job, with a middle school graduate father and an unemployed mother. I don't want to support a family like this with my hard-earned money. My husband sneered as he handed me the divorce papers. You should look up the divorce procedures on the internet. At least you can manage that, right? I'll let you keep the house. It's in your name anyway. Goodbye. With those words, he left, likely with his belongings already packed. My thoughts were in disarray and I didn't know what to do next. All I had ever wanted was to get married, have children, and live happily ever after. I longed for my father to see his grandchildren. I couldn't comprehend how I had ended up in this situation. Gazing at the untouched meal I had prepared for my husband, I cried out in despair, wishing I could turn back time to the day before the argument. I should have just smiled and listened to him like I always did. I clutched the divorce papers and wept for a long time, but my husband didn't return home. Days passed, and when I finally started to regain my composure, I began looking into divorce proceedings. In the meantime, I moved back to my parents' house to heal. One day, I received a phone call on my cell phone. "Oh, Hunt, can I meet your father? I'd like to talk to him." My ex-husband's voice sounded on the line. I was taken aback by his sudden interest in my father's workplace, which he had previously belittled. The company my father worked for was a well-established, locally renowned firm, and it just so happened that some of his colleagues had heard about my divorce. My father's friends, who knew about my ex-husband's mistreatment of me, felt offended and even reached out to me to express their concern. Word had spread, and surprisingly, it reached my ex-husband's workplace as well. It began affecting his position within the company. I learned that he was trying to paint me as the villain in our divorce, but when confronted by the company's board members who had heard the rumors, he had to come clean. My ex-husband was even considered for disciplinary action by the company. I was certain that he would come begging for my forgiveness, but by then, I had lost all interest in him. Instead, I was deeply impressed by my father's ability to build genuine and honorable relationships. I gained a newfound respect for him, and my father was equally amazed. So I'm in a bit of a bind. You understand, right? Your husband, the man you once loved so much, is facing difficulties. If your father could just have a word with me, this would all be resolved, and we could be together again. And if you want, your father can come live with us. We'll make things even better than before. You do want to be with me, don't you? Nobody else would take you in. A high school graduate, an unemployed woman like yourself anyway. What? What are you talking about? First of all, we're divorced. We're already strangers. Why would I want to be with you? I retorted. Wouldn't it be great if you lost your job? You wouldn't have to worry about making any mistakes, and nobody would criticize you. You wouldn't have any stress, which is perfect for you. Besides, I have a job and I'm doing quite well, thank you. I don't care about your narrow-minded views on education, and I refuse to be belittled any longer. I find contentment in my everyday life. Why did you rely on the person you cheated on me with? I'm not the one you should be seeking help from. My ex-husband stammered and struggled to respond. It had occurred to me the day he had confronted me for the divorce papers and then left me that he had left quite easily. It was a woman's intuition, or perhaps just a gut feeling, but I wondered if there was a possibility he had been having an affair. Without hesitation, I hired a private detective who soon unearthed substantial evidence that led me to the decision to divorce him. I had prepared everything meticulously as I intended to secure everything I could. I had been planning to claim alimony from him and his partner. Still, I was taken aback by his desperate attempt to reconcile. You should learn how to ask for favors if you're going to beg for help, I advised him. But I suppose that's not in your nature. I have no interest in being with someone like you. It's a waste of my time. Why did I hold on to you for so long? If I could turn back time, I would slap some sense into myself, I added, feeling a mixture of frustration and relief. Who do you think you are, Hunt? It's all your father's fault for being a middle school graduate. Don't speak to me like that. I'll sue you for defamation. Don't underestimate me. Prepare yourself. I warned before he abruptly ended the call. That night, my ex-husband visited my parents' house and created a scene, cursing both my father and me. My mother promptly called the police and provided them with the recorded evidence I had gathered during our phone conversation. My ex-husband's actions were reported to his company, which led to his dismissal. When I requested alimony, he came to my parents' house once more and unleashed a destructive fit. This time, he was arrested for vandalism and faced legal charges. He wouldn't be getting out anytime soon. In the following months, I used the settlement money to purchase an apartment. My parents also sold our house and moved into a more comfortable apartment. Retirement benefits are just a system, and not every company offers them. My mother had wisely planned for her financial future from an early age, and her diligent efforts had accumulated a considerable amount of assets. Reflecting on my parents' strength, I realized that people's financial standing should not be judged solely based on their educational backgrounds. Even if my father retired, it wouldn't affect us negatively. We had ample savings. My mother spoke with a radiant smile on her face, and I couldn't help but admire both my parents. Although my marriage had ended in failure, I couldn't label it as pure misfortune. It had been a valuable life lesson. At the moment, I couldn't even consider entering into another marriage. However, if I were to meet someone truly special in the future, I hoped we could build a loving partnership just like my parents had.